I don't want you to tell me that you're an ethical seller. You shouldn't have to tell me that you're an ethical seller.
In the ethical model, number one is empathetic communication. I mean, and that's as simple as understanding what empathy is, put yourself in their shoes, trying to do that. Bye. Now, someone who does that is already probably a better seller than somebody who's diving in going, hey, look how bloody wonderful I am. I mean, literally, you've already got a little bit of competitive advantage.
Hi, my name is Will and welcome to today's episode of the Salesman podcast. On today's episode, we have Fred Copestake. He is a sales trainer. He is the author of 3 books, and his latest book, Ethical Selling, is exactly what we're talking about on today's show. And interestingly enough, and the most important thing, all of the show always comes back to this idea, right, of how to help you generate more money, live a bigger life. Most high-level sellers are selling ethically. That is a fact. We dive into it in this episode. And so if you want to level up your sales skills, then stay tuned. Fred, welcome to the Salesman Podcast. Welcome back to the Salesman Podcast.
Back. You're either desperate or I did something half right.
You did something half right. The level of desperation, there were plenty more people I'd have on if I was desperate other than you, Fred. You're in no bullshit. You're in the top 10. I reached out to 10 people that I wanted to relaunch the podcast with. You were in that top 10.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah, there you go. Cool. Right. So massively leading question to get us into the conversation. And then maybe we can diverge from the kind of traditional talking points in this idea of ethical selling, what we're going to discuss. But are our chances of winning sales in B2B, and we can get into other areas of sales in a second, but in B2B specifically, are they increased by selling more ethically?
Yes. Next question.
Next question then is...
childish answer. I've not got any better, have I?
We'll get into the why in a second, but then that leads to the question of what does it mean to sell ethically?
Okay, so the way that I think the easiest way to define ethical selling is when we're taking into account a win-win-win outcome. So we've talked about win-win forever in sales, haven't we? Don't always get it, but really we've got to make sure the customer wins. We've got to make sure our own company wins. I'm not giving stuff away. But then the third win that I'm talking about more is that our own conscience wins. So that we're doing stuff with integrity and we're doing stuff in a way that we can just be happy to look in the mirror and say, I've done a good job of work today. Yeah, I'm a decent person. And it works, again, for 2 main reasons. Customers want it, and it's best practice is the simple version of it. So it's like kind of, well, you'd be crazy not to start to really understand what are these things of the best practice because the customer responds so well to it. Put these together, that's why I can give a simple answer, yes.
Is this in an ideal world, or does this exist in the reality that we live in? And I'm coming at this from 50% of the audience. Well, there'll be a percentage of the audience. Maybe there's some data on this, so you can enlighten us on. But there's a decent chunk of the audience who are not having all the success in the world in sales. They are watching films like The Wolf of Wall Street. They have ingrained into them this idea of just hustling and just getting deals over the line, no matter what. And this comes from pressure internally as well, of hitting quotas and targets, sometimes by all means necessary. Are you saying that is less effective than selling ethically? And so in which case, doing the right thing is going to be more profitable for everyone involved. And so that becomes the obvious answer.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff's glamorized. It's glamorized, it's lionized, it's hero, in the kind of on those films, and it all looks fun and whatever. But at the end of the day, look, it's bad stuff, and then could people be proud of themselves for doing that? I don't know. I think the reason that people might not go down this route, and again, that's the stuff I was looking at, is that it's kind of easier to get your head around some of those more manipulative or just kind of stupid, childish tactics. Because when we've talked about ethical selling in the past, I felt that we kind of go off up into the clouds. We start talking principles and morals and philosophies, and we get into codes of conduct. And you sat there going, yeah, I've got to make a sales today, Fred. All that stuff's lovely. I don't really understand it. I'm going to crack on with what I know and what I'm seeing and what I've been taught in the past, or what makes sense to me and what might have worked because people want to buy something. And that's why I took the route of going, right, let's go the opposite direction. Let's go tactical. Let's look at the techniques. Let's look at the things you can do tomorrow if you read the book, if you get your head around this stuff, so that it becomes more accessible for people.
Yeah, because I think for
when
the
you look at
audience,
those things, they are real life activities that you'd say, actually, I recognise that, I do that. Oh, well, that's a bit different. But it's stuff that can be done immediately. Yeah. Otherwise, there's no point putting it in the book.
We'll get into the practical side of things in a second for sure. I think that's where the value of this conversation is going to come from. But I think for the audience, when they hear ethical selling, they have exactly the same reaction as you just outlined of, this all sounds fantastic, but I've got to pay my mortgage, my boss is looking over my shoulder, my customers are all idiots and don't listen to what I say, and their experience might be that it's only when I do things that I don't feel great about, which is, and this also comes back down to this idea of, if you did have this magic power to be able to influence anyone, if you used it for good, it'd be kind of cool. Yeah. But I think a lot of the skills that and training that was taught in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s in sales, which is why I started the podcast in the first place. It was all a bit weird and manipulative. And I knew that I couldn't use any of that with any of the surgeons that I was selling to, because I would just get immediately kicked out of the operating room. I look like an idiot. You'd never be invited back. You just lost a $1 million account, £1 million account instantly. That's why I started the podcast, to work out how to get the fundamentals right. So you don't have to cheat. You don't have to use all these weird processes and hacks. So I'm totally on board with all this, obviously. But there'll be, again, a segment of the audience who are going, well, I can't follow this code of conduct because it's been written by some executive or some person with a fancy job title who is in the DEI division or the ethics division of the organization. So how does this translate then to that individual? How can we influence them to implement this practically?
Yeah, I mean, well, first up is let's address the fact that, it's what I call the Goldilocks effect. Goldilocks, three bears, and it's like the sort of, it's too hot, too cold. It's like, it's too hot, it's too soft. It is not any of those things. It's not too hard to do. It is stuff which people are doing. They're doing it every day. It's not even brand new. And it's just getting your head around those. And if you are doing it better, more deliberately. If it's not, it's investigating, well, should I be doing that? Because it is what successful people are doing. And so it's not difficult. Too soft, this is where people will be thinking, so you're asking me to be passive, you're asking me to be a pushover, you're asking me to tell the customer everything, because you're going to go on about transparency, aren't you? I've got to show them all my margins. No, it's not about that. Good salespeople will have challenging conversations. You actually need to be fairly tough sometimes with customers. That's good practice. So let's dispel those myths and all of this stuff that it's not something that you can do, and it's not something that will work, because let's say that's the route I took, is looking at the things which, some great sales thinkers are talking about because it works, and kind of wrapping those into a way that you can just use it to focus on this way that you're achieving those 3 wins. And one for yourself as well, because you've done stuff like a decent person. I mean, I don't know about you, I like buying things off decent people.
As
that conversation.
Yeah,
I'm just happier. I'll give them more time. We'll probably get to the problems that I've got better. They can present something, I'll listen to them. It's just kind of obvious, really. And that's what we're doing there. It's not like wrapping ourselves up with a ton of different rules and sat ivory tower, DEI and kind of theoretical people. It's stuff that people are doing in real life.
As the Salesman.com team expands, as I regrettably buy more and more software, which is now in like the cost of thousands a month in tools and software that I'm paying out. You look at the commoditized market of, we're using Riverside FM to record this. I used to use Zoom. My Zoom bill is now like £600-700 a year. And it didn't even have some of the features that Riverside had. I jumped on a call with someone from Zoom wanted to jump on a call with me because they wanted to upsell me onto their webinar program. And he just was not a good dude. Instantly put me off. And so in a somewhat commoditized, depending on the industry you're in, but almost all industries and products are now commoditized, I think the individual that you're dealing with becomes a competitive advantage. And if you congruently come across as, a good dude, good girl, someone who has value, someone who can offer a level of value over someone else from a different product or service, I think that is a competitive advantage in today's marketplace. So with that said, because this would be like kind of gross and weird and cheesy of having, I don't know, I'd say that back. But if I saw someone who was like I'm eating my own words now. I'm just going to say it because this might not be.
You're
This
not
might
going
be.
to me, Will. Well, you might do.
I don't know what I'm saying.
I'll not show it.
If I saw a salesperson and in the bio, not in the bio, in the headline on LinkedIn, it was like conscious ethical seller or something like that, I'd be like, oh, shut up.
You've got my LinkedIn profile open in front of you. You realise that my current job is with ethical selling because.
So
I give myself a job as the book author.
The author is fine, makes total sense. I'm on about B2B salesperson selling a software tool. I don't want you to tell me that you're an ethical seller. You shouldn't have to tell me that you're an ethical seller. I don't want to see that. I want that to be the experience as I engage with you. So without overtly saying it, how do we communicate this?
Actions speak louder than words. It's about how you go about doing your stuff, and it will become clear. People will become comfortable. And again, you're not using this to manipulate. You know, I've got a problem with Voss's tactical empathy. And I'm starting to talk about it more because he's not in the FBI anymore, so he ain't going to arrest me. But that sounds as though you're using a tactic to do something that might not necessarily be what the other party is all about. Again, I suppose if you do it well, they don't really know. But what I'm talking about with ethical selling is that some of the things that we're talking about, so in the ethical model, number one is empathetic communication. I mean, and that's as simple as understanding what empathy is, put yourself in their shoes, trying to do that by asking better questions so that you can understand them better and they can understand themselves better. And if you're going to do that, listen better. Now, someone who does that is already probably a better seller than somebody who's diving in going, hey, look how bloody wonderful I am. I mean, literally, you've already got a little bit of competitive advantage. Yeah, transparency and integrity, number two. Ethical model spells ethical. I'm a simple person, you know that well. Yeah. The tactic that I took from there, I took from Todd Capone. Todd's a great thinker on this stuff. Lead with a flaw. Say, hey, look, I know you're looking at this sort of software for your podcast. If it's purely to do this, we might not be the right option for you. However, if you're also looking to do this, and this, then I'd say we probably are. And you'll think, well, that's refreshing. I've spoken to 3 other people who say we're bloody brilliant at everything, will not be beaten, cutting edge, innovative, market leader. You're like
AI.
the other 3. AI driven. Yeah, okay. You are. Oh, God, no one else said that. So again, bang, bang, couple of little things that you can start to do. You don't need to say that you are. It just becomes apparent, and it's probably even subconscious. That's the sort of stuff we're looking to do there. Informed decision making. There we go. There's the information. I've given you it straight. Your choice. I'm not pushing you into this. Hope you do buy it. Got a target to hit, in brackets, not said. But leave them the space to do that. Whilst they're being battered by everybody and come end of the month, quarter, whatever, you're like, no, this is got to be right for you. And if there's other stuff you need, if you need more time, if you need me to even introduce you to different options, competitive advantage, because you're going to stand out. You're a better person.
So is the value of this, you feel good as an individual, which is critically underrated if you're going to be in sales for a long period of time. If you feel bad about yourself, you're going to underperform, you're not going to believe in what you're saying, you're going to have to feel like you're going to have to manipulate people. So there's a rabbit hole of issues that kind of go down that route. But is the true value here that you stand out in a marketplace of, I call them pesky salespeople, and that's what delivers the results? Or does it go beyond that?
So you're going to stand out, your sales stature, your reputation, personal brand. But I don't use that word with salespeople anymore.
Why not?
Because I don't like it. I usually get that. I don't want to be a bloody influencer. Yeah, but you want to have a great reputation and be considered the go-to person. Yeah, well, okay, do some influency type thing. Let's just not call it that. Yeah, that's what I found, particularly engineering, manufacturing space. They don't like it. So yes, you're on the front foot in your reputation and the way in which you go about things, but then the way in which you go about things are better. So when I talked about questioning, yeah, okay, open close questions, good. All know that. Yeah, there's other questioning tools. So you might get better at probing questions, summary questions, hypotheticals, using a questioning model like SPIN. So things which you're doing because it helps customers understand stuff better. You're going to make assumptions. I'm on a bit of a soapbox about this at the moment, that Ask You and Me thing, it's like rubbish trainer talk. They put it on the board and stand back and go, oh, look how clever I am. So I know it's wrong. You've got to assume in sales, because you've got to make this intelligent assumption. This is what's going on in their world. So then you can start to form a high gain question. You can start to use something to trigger their thinking about something that might be happening they're not aware of. And now you're kind of really moving towards driving value, because you're having a useful conversation to them. That's ethical. That's what this stuff, and it's been around for a bit. I've not invented that, but that is what we're encouraging people to do. And so it's going to have that impact on results, because it's just better sales.
Is this somewhat similar to, but taken from a different angle of, something I talk about a lot is, rather than forcing someone down your sales cycle, you help them along the buyer's journey. I think if you frame it up like that, you're almost inadvertently selling ethically, when you're just trying to help the prospect. I don't even call them prospects, call them buyers. Help the buyer move along the journey to solve their own problem. And if you can't help them, obviously you communicate that you can't. And there's a bunch of sales trainers that we pass business around each other, where I'm not a good fit for that individual. I'll pass them off to someone else. That individual sales trainer, there's a couple that I've got in mind, will bounce kind of leads and potential customers my way. We do this month in, month out. Is that another way of framing this up? Perhaps that our goal is to help the buyer move down their own buyer's journey, as opposed to force them through a funnel that we've preconceived and that we've kind of built around an end goal of us getting a commission and buying a Porsche.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bit old-fashioned, isn't it? That my sales process, I do this, this, and this to you. I mean, come on, let's make the mental shift into, we are doing things together. We are collaborating. So let's have a look at the steps that you're going through. Now, I'm not even sure people go through steps. Like we've got our lovely sort of set out funnel. It's like, oh, I have an implicit need. I must evaluate options, or I must write criteria. I must evaluate options. I must agree and negotiate. No, it's a squiggly mess with different stuff going on. And this is kind of where sales is changing, isn't it? Where people will be taking information from different areas, from you, from your competitors, from websites, from colleagues, from socials, from YouTube, from, so many different areas. And so we're setting ourselves up, I would say, to be useful on that journey. Now, whether it's us providing information in a way that they can take when they're not speaking to us live, real life, or that actually they want to, because we are the people that they trust and that they're going to get value from doing that because of how we positioned ourselves and the rest of it. So yeah, I'd say that is one of the mental shifts we can make, to be more ethical, is that people are on their journey and we want to be going with them on that. Now, it might be challenging them at some stage. I said that already. But it's not forcing them down, though. This is my route to where I want you to end up. No, I want you to end up where you need to end up. And that could be with somebody else. It could be doing something different. It could be doing nothing. But often it's not. It's just that's a choice people make.
Has this always been the best way to sell, or has this become the best way to sell right now as we record this in 2025? Perhaps because buyers are more empowered, they have more information, markets are commoditized more than they ever has been. Has there been a shift that has led to this becoming more effective?
It probably has always been the best way of selling. We've probably not always realised that, or we've probably not always done that. And I sometimes go back and have this little skip through the decades and looking at kind of what's going on in the 50s and it's about process. But that was more so that we could do the things that work time and time again. Great. Okay, good. 60s, we were kind of looking at the psychology, understanding people. So how we can communicate in a way that's more comfortable, better for them. It makes sense. 70s, we started with benefits, didn't we? Theodore Levitt and his drill.
You said, didn't we, as if I was alive in the 70s?
I was referring to us as sales professionals. I know I look as I'm barely out of uni because I got all the filters turned up on this, but 70s, okay, I was alive then. I wasn't selling. I was probably selling my concepts to parents. Sure. But benefit selling, Theodore Levitt is real. Mm-hmm. Then we had that 80s period, didn't we? Where it all kind of went a bit wonky. Close, manipulate, greed is good. Yeah, objection, handling. Let's handle this person into the corner so they have to say yes to us. And we're stuck with that millstone around our necks, which is a shame because in the 90s we'd got the consultative selling, which is when Neil Rackham looked at what's actually happening with the best salespeople. Well, they're not doing that. They're not even doing what they're trained. They're asking more questions to help people understand need, because where they are now, where they want to be is different. So, I mean, that has been going on quite a bit. And it's surprising how many people aren't really still picking up on that. We're leading product. Then I tend to notice it will tend to be more value selling. So actually not really get into the value someone takes, and it's never defines it. Again, that's a mistake a lot of people make. Oh, I'll tell you what value you need, which is okay as a hypothesis and a way to lead, but then we've got to work to get them defining it. 10s, okay, that's where we start sales stature, positioning, personal branding. And then now 20s, I'd say we're into this collaborative, and that's why I've written those 3 books. It's like the collaborative selling piece. Hybrid came quite quickly after that because there's more stuff we needed to do because of changes from pandemic. But then, keeping the finger on the pulse like we need to. Well, the ethical seems to be this next logical step, and the faster we adopt this because of the speed of change, the better benefits we can get, and those people will rise to the top who do it.
Mm-hmm. How much value is there in attempting to create trust before we even engage with the buyer? So we're now kind of touching on the influencer side of things now, or creating content and to build attention and trust at scale. These kind of things, personal branding. So not necessarily that you're this big cheese in the industry, but you're a known quantity. I will always pay extra to go to a company, an organization, or a person that I go, okay, they've got at the very minimum, they've got a track record. They have had some success in this space. If I'm looking to hire staff, or if I'm looking to hire freelancers for different jobs and different things, projects, that I'm happy to pay a premium for that in the position where the finances kind of make sense. But is that valuable for individual reps, individual quota-carrying salespeople?
I'd say it's valuable. No, it's absolutely, it's a must now because of where we're at. You want to be in a position where your reputation precedes you. You will have a better meeting. You'll have a better contact. Things will go the way that you and the customer want it to. Whereas on the flip side, if there's nothing about you out there, I wonder if it'll actually cost you. Because what's the first thing you would do if you're meeting with somebody? You're just like, well, let's have a look at it on LinkedIn. They're not on LinkedIn. What weird? Or they're there, but they haven't really done anything to try to show me how good they are. They don't hold much for this meeting. In fact, I'm not going to go to it. Let's cancel that. It's going to be a waste of time. My most valuable product. Whereas this person knows what they're on about. Oh, look. And you get down this little rabbit hole because they're producing stuff and you're in the... This is awesome. They clearly know that. I wasn't going to ask them about that. That is really key. I'm looking forward to this. I'm going to make a bit more time because I can see I'm going to get some value from it. I'd say if we're not doing that, we're crazy because we're missing a massive opportunity, and it's going to cost us. It's kind of almost two ends of the spectrum, isn't it?
How do we? Because I can wax lyrical about how to create content that builds that intrigue and interest, so people show up to meetings, for example. But
you've got a new product coming out, have you? Or a new part of the offer around this?
I won't bore the audience on this idea of market of one, but I'd probably ask that question maybe because it's top of mind for me. It's like it's mulling in my subconscious. I want to get, I respect your opinion. I want to get your thoughts and opinions on this as well. But how do we do that from a perspective of building trust, transparency, and doing things ethically, rather than, the video that we're building right now at Salesman.com, that when someone books a call, they get a video the day before to watch. It's about half an hour. It's basically a webinar. Honestly, there is a bunch of sales marketing tactics in there to hook people, to drag them into the next part of the video, and hopefully I'm delivering value as it goes along. But there is definitely I don't think, you call me out on it if you like, I don't think it's unethical to do that if you make a promise, then deliver on the promise and continue the video as it goes along. But it's certainly organized and structured in a way that is designed to selfishly get the person on a call.
They're going to come on a call because they're interested in the stuff that you're talking about. Yeah, and so the stuff that you're talking about is going to have to be relevant to them and positioned in a way that's interesting. Yeah, I guess that's what the video is doing. I can't see why that's unethical. If you're saying this and you're doing a brilliant job with it for that target market, and I look at it and go, that's not really me. Well, we've done a sort of favour there, haven't we? I'm not going to waste your time. I'm not going to waste my own time because it's repelled me. But I go, this is really good. And actually now making me think about other stuff that I want to talk about because that is me. You are talking to me. You're highlighting stuff I hadn't thought about. we're into a better place faster. And we want to end up win-win-win. Yeah. Has the customer won? Yes, because they're going to get this stuff and an opportunity to buy into the academy and to be better at what they do. Yeah. Have you won? Yeah. Because our customer. And ultimately, yeah, we are a business. Let's not lose the commerciality of this. We are salespeople at the end of the day. Conscience, I wasn't doing tricky dicky stuff. I'm going to offer them all this stuff and then actually, you know what, ain't going to happen. Going to get the money and off I go. See you. It's not that, is it? You go, no, I've done a good job. I've helped another person be better at their job and earn a ton more money than I was charging them anyway. Yeah, good. Well, good with that.
Who is the arbiter of what is ethical? Is it the buyer? Is it your gut feeling and your intuition as you are going through the process? Is there a definitive individual who gets to say black or white whether this was ethical or not?
See, now you're going into the area up in the clouds where I tended to steer clear from because I didn't want to get too much into that because I'm not really sure that people are that bothered. They're more bothered about how they can do the good stuff. To attempt to answer the question though and trying to sort of keep it short and not sort of end up in a sort of philosophical sort of late night glass of whiskey by the fire, whatever.
That's like the after show. Cigar,
the after
whiskey.
Party. Everybody's welcome along. I think the easiest way. Let's go down the easy route. I like easy stuff. Yeah, is your gut will tell you to a degree. You'll know if you've done right or if something that you did is just a little bit off. Are you proud about it? Are you going to go and tell people about that? Unless you're kind of flexing with the bros about, hey, so right, I'm going to make tricky dicky moves. I think that would be the simplest way to think about that. You know, have you taken somebody down a route where it isn't really best for them? Yeah, my own catchphrase, as a little mantra I work to, is good people doing good things in a good way. So yeah, hopefully you're a good person because of the things that you're doing and what you're achieving and the way in which you go about doing that sort of stuff. So if it feels a bit off, if you probably wouldn't like it done to you, have a word with yourself. And there is probably a better way anyway. That clever thing you're doing, probably not that clever, actually.
I think you just touched on two really important things. Some of this is contextual of if you just hang out with bros or the equivalent of bros for women, whatever that word would be.
Broettes.
Broettes, dudettes. And everyone's doing the same thing. Your gut might not be tuned in to the fact that is, even like the last company I worked for, they hired basically ex-military and ex-athletes. And I was the only person in the sales team who wasn't ex-military, ex-athlete, basically, in the grand scheme of things. So it was hyper competitive. It was dog eat dog. There was one dude at one point tried to like bully me. It was hilarious. And we ended up, he ended up becoming a running joke of me just dunking on him every time he was just being an idiot. And so, but that was the culture. And so you're almost being not encouraged to do anything manipulative or anything particularly kind of unethical. Because obviously it was medical devices. There is a hard limit here of what you can and can't tell surgeons, unless you want to end up in court. Quite frankly, at the end of the day, which is
pretty rigorous.
Yeah, which is no good for anyone. But that was the company culture internally. So I think you raised again two good points here. One that solves the problem of if you're just hanging out with the bros and everyone else is doing this, you may feel like that is an appropriate way to act. But what you said was, which I thought was really interesting, is if you wouldn't like this to be done to you, then that's probably the North Star. If you tell someone something, if you explain something to someone, if you use some weird tactic, if you lie about discounts, if you do something that you would, if it happened to you, you'd feel gross, I think that's a pretty clear line in the sand that goes beyond the culture of the organization or the people you're hanging out with. Because you want to, going back into the cards here for a second, but you want to end up 97 years old in an old people's home thinking, I've done some good in this world. I've had the Ferrari, I've had the big house, I've done all the good stuff because I was successful in my career. But you don't want to be lay in bed thinking, well, I only did that by at minimum annoying people, at worst ripping people off.
I think that's absolutely right. And you know what? I've got more comfortable in the fact that some people will still not behave like that. There will still be people that think it's clever to lie, cheat, manipulate, push, do all that sort of thing. And when I say I get more comfortable, I'm I'm not talking to them. I can't be asked. I'm not bothered. You're unlikely, this podcast, the book, the institute, whatever, is unlikely to change that. I used to have hair when I started training. And I had many, many training sessions where there weren't people who were like that, but they kind of didn't really want to be there. They were like training hostage and stuff. And I tried to turn them around. I just wasted so much effort when really it should have been spent on the people that wanted to be there, wanted to do the good stuff, and could have benefited more. And I could have actually given them more than trying to turn the others around. And so, yeah, I'm now very much more, okay, well, that's how they're going to be. If they pick up on the message and they start to change, actually, I'm really happy. But if they don't, then really, you know what, don't matter. Because there's a ton more of decent people who are interested in this and want to try and get their head around it and will understand it and see, actually, they're doing a ton of it already. Let's just do it more deliberately and even better. And yeah, then we're going to have massive more impact. It's not even English, is it? Bigger impact. And do better stuff. Good people do good things in a good way. Yeah, well, the baddies carry on doing what they do and they'll just probably end up drifting away, but hey.
Final question on this. So you can tell us about the book and about the Institute as well, Fred.
But book? I didn't mention a book at all, did I, so far?
You plenty of opportunity to pitch in a second. But
sorry, mate.
How much of being ethical versus being a slimy salesperson, how much correlation is that to, how much correlation of that is down to how many deals are in your pipeline and how healthy your sales are looking for the year?
Oh, that's a cracker. Because, yeah, you see when the pressure's coming on, and it's like, oh, I need to do stuff here. That's when you're really going to test the metal, aren't you? That's it. Well, I could probably nudge this one forward. Okay, so you hit that target because of something you've done. Or maybe, yeah, you might still not, but okay, you brought yourself close to that target, something you've done. Right. Well, they're going to reset, aren't they? That's one of the bloody things about sales, is the bang, right back to naught. Okay, here I go again. Oh, I've just made my life more difficult. Because I've not enhanced my reputation, but I've probably done some stuff which is now going to get out there that, you know what, he's not the best person to speak to, or I'm not going to be getting the referrals, or so much as because you might know how to do some of these things, much as the temptation might be there, I think to stick to your guns and go, no, long run, this isn't the right thing to do. So he's going to come back and affect me. Yes, it's going to hit my conscience, but actually it's going to hit my numbers and that as well. My company will suffer and the customer's going to suffer. I've just done a lose there. Mm-hmm. But when that pressure's on, our brains don't always work properly, do they? Yeah, we're like, I don't know, get flustered and start doing stuff, which is why having your way of working, knowing what those right things are, having that set up makes sense to do that, so you can pull back into it when the pressure's on.
I think 80% of what I talk about on this podcast over the past 10 years comes back down to, if your pipeline is healthy enough, everything's probably going to be just fine. You don't need to do weird 80s, 90s manipulative tactics. You don't need weird closing statements. You don't need to bully people into doing things that they don't want. Unfortunately, people just hate prospecting. That's like the biggest crux of modern B2B sales is, if you just have more conversations with more of the right people, most things, most of the time, end up working out right.
Yeah. And look, prospecting is ethical. Prospecting is absolutely ethical, isn't it? End of the day, if you've got a solution to people's problems, now you know what they are, don't you? Because you've worked them out. Step one. Yeah. And you're not talking to them, you're a bad person. Really? Or if you want to reframe it like that, you can help people out do stuff. Right. So we just got to get the message into them that, hey, we understand this stuff that's going on, your issues, concerns, challenges, jobs to be done, whatever word you want to use, indicate you know that and that there's discussions to be had that's going to help them get their head around it, because they're probably already on that journey, that buying journey, yeah, because they're further down than ever before. Let's try and set ourselves a bit earlier, say, hey, look, we could have a chat around that. There's some stuff we could do to help you think about it. That's what a decent human being would do, wouldn't it?
You would do that with a friend or a family. If they were telling you they had a problem and you had the solution, you'd be a bit of a dick if you didn't offer them the solution if you knew what it was.
Wouldn't you? Oh, I know exactly what they could do. I'm not going to tell them, though.
Yeah. That's weird, right?
Yeah, wouldn't it be? Wouldn't it be?
So why we'll wrap up with this because this is a rabbit hole that we'll go down another time.
It's a good one,
Fred. But why do people then feel that reluctance? Because that makes logical sense. Why do people feel this reluctance to do cold outreach and to be assertive with the cold outreach? Reach out with a bold hypothesis and trying to communicate with potential customers.
Well, it's a good place to wrap up because we're going full circle, aren't we? Because they're worried about being a pushy salesperson. And that reputation we've got because of people doing all that manipulative, pushy, poorly executed sometimes, I think. Let's also go there in that sometimes people haven't been trained on doing this properly. They've had 1 million hours of product training and they watched a 10-minute video on sales training. Guess what you're going to gravitate to because nobody's told you any different. Yeah, so you kind of lead with that, my stuff, and it kind of just lands badly because they don't know better. So we receive bad stuff, so we think, oh no, I might be having that effect. Well, don't do that then. Do something that is more effective, highlighting the problem, being more interested in the way you're highlighting it. Voice notes, videos, the stuff you're putting on LinkedIn, just be a bit different, stand out, have a bit of fun with it, so that you're deliberately not being classed in the same category as the ones that we want to avoid.
Yep, absolutely. So with that, then tell us about the book, tell us about the institute, and tell us where we can find out more about you as well.
Yeah, sorry, I never dropped too many times, but that's because I was referring back to the model that's in there. So yeah, book, ethical selling, that's what it's called. So it goes through the ethical model. So it starts off with a why it's a good idea, why you won't, why those ideas that you won't are bullshit, and then goes into the model which breaks down the elements of ethical, empathetic communication, transparency and integrity is another area, holistic value creation, that informed decision making that I mentioned earlier, collaborative relationship building, of course I'm going to put that in, wrote the first book on that. Adaptive negotiation, and then learning and growth, getting better and better and better at this stuff because the world is moving quickly. It's cool. It's the model. I told you, simple. So yeah, that's there. And what's really cool is that the Institute of Ethical Selling is using that framework to give to members the orientation, certification information. So when you join, you get orientation, takes you through some training on that, so that you can do the little tests that come along, get to the end of the test, boom, certified. So you can say, hey, this is the way I operate. So you can use this thing they've got called the Certi Key. It's like a little badge to say, hey, look, this is how I operate, like an email signature. Hopefully buyers can think, okay, cool, trust this person. I can have a decent conversation with them because they get this. And then ongoing information to keep up on the movement, I suppose, that this is. So yeah, they're the sort of the things that are there to help people get their head around this. Because at the end of the day, it's not difficult, it's not brand new, it's not hard, it's not soft. It's there and it works.
Nice. Well, I'll link to all of that. I'll link to your LinkedIn profile, your website in the show notes of this episode over at salesman.com. And with that, Fred, as always, mate, I appreciate you. I appreciate the insights. I appreciate the back and forth. And I want to thank you for joining us on the show.
Thanks for inviting me. Appreciate it.